to us it's paramount because we're doing something that nobody has done before. So in order to find out what travelers are actually doing while they're traveling, we have to validate all of our assumptions, what we think is important to travelers while they're traveling. And the only way to do it is actually by looking at the data. What are they actually doing while they're arriving at the airport, going to the hotel, going to their meeting, and all of the stuff that happens in between. It's one big data set that we're constantly watching, constantly monitoring what they're actually doing. I think the big trends are obviously location-based. So how do we tie location to destination and what's important around them? And that ties then into context. So I need to understand what you're trying to accomplish. And we can only figure that out by looking at a bunch of big data views on what other people have been doing at the exact same location. So that's very important. And then the third layer is segmentation of, okay, how can we group all of those people into the same basket so we can also predict if you arrive somewhere that we know, like close to headquarters or a hotel that many of your colleagues also visited, then we might suggest stuff that might seem worthwhile to you as well. It starts with the first question, right? So in many cases, we think we are right. And we continue on that path, and we're looking at the data to basically substantiate what we already thought was happening. So the core question is that it might actually be wrong. So what if we turn that around and say, well, we don't know, so we're probably wrong, and then use the data to see if we're actually right or on the right path. So I think people value the data more if they also understand that their first initial thoughts might be wrong instead of right. In any industry, I think the data privacy piece is the biggest barrier. I think for all of the customers that we talk to, roughly 30 to 40% of, after they get sort of the business value, the first biggest barrier is data privacy and data security, which makes a lot of sense, but should not stop us from moving forward into direction, because there are many ways of solving that problem. Well, yeah, the obvious candidates would be the Googles and the Apples and etc. So to turn this into a travel thing, I think what Uber is doing, so if we look at what Uber is doing, the interface presumably doesn't change. But I know in the back of it, it's been totally data-driven of what works and what doesn't. So I really like that example. And I also really like Booking.com, because they actually live by the example of validating any assumption that any pixel on their website is actually an assumption that it might work or not. And so I really like those two examples.